Welcome to the Bearded Finisher Podcast, your one-stop show for all things finishing and coatings. Your host, Zach, and a variety of industry experts will guide you through the art of perfecting your finishing and business game. From seasoned pros to fresh faces, get ready for tips, tricks, and trends to elevate your knowledge and business to the next level.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of the Bearded Finisher Podcast. Real quick, want to thank our studio sponsors, mypaintbuckets.com. They are the first program management software specifically designed for residential painters. They manage the chaos of material ordering and scheduling so you can focus on growing your business. Go check them out, mypaintbuckets.com. Chris is an awesome guy, and he'll take good care of you. Now, on to today's episode, we've got Mike Ziegler. What is going on, Mike?
How we doing?
I'm doing good, man. Enjoying the nice, not too hot weather down here in Texas. It was only like 90 today.
That's not bad. It's supposed to be like 98 here in North Carolina this upcoming weekend. So,
golly. So in Carolina, are you on the coast or are you more on the west side?
Western side towards the foothills. It's a Hickory, like an hour north of Charlotte.
Okay. I used to go to Charlotte when I was visiting Hartley Coatings. They're down in Charlotte when they used to be a distributor when I was with Centurion. Always had a lot of fun going down there. So let's kind of dig in. Let's just do a quick backstory of Mike and what you're doing now and how you got into the refinishing world.
Lord, well, it starts way back in the 80s. I'm an old man now, 45. But I would say that my dad had one of those two-car garage shops. And I would be out there in the shop. And basically, at some point, I don't remember the exact age, but he would put me to work before I'd go out and play. Not in a bad way, just say, hey, I need you to sand these pine drawers, because he made everything out of pine at the time. And so basically, I learned how to sand and how not to sand very quickly. If I wanted to go play, I sanded correctly. And then as years progressed, we had moved from, and this time at that point, we're in Virginia. Then we moved to Arizona, and he starts building like those full entertainment centers. It's in the late 90s, like mid to late 90s.
Oh, those big ones. Yeah,
because at that time you didn't have the flat screen televisions. You had the big 36-inch CRT, Trinitron TVs.
Yeah, those big console bastards that weighed 500 pounds.
Yeah, so in order to put that into a entertainment center that you had to build out, it's like basically a huge bookcase.
Yep.
So when he was doing that, and I was in high school, he was working 14 hours a day, doing that. So in order to see him, I had to go work with him. That was the best way I could put it, because he had a shop at the house, and then he eventually moved into a 1,000-square-foot shop that he shared with another guy. And that guy was a professional refinisher that did just insane projects. So they split the shop down the middle. So I got to learn a little bit of that. I got to learn building of the furniture, the whole staining, the finishing process, installation. So eventually, like as years go down, I was the install guy and the finish guy. So what helped them with that is that I was the muscle to install it. But if something happened, scratched it, whatever the case may be, then I was able to help touch it up and refinish it. So the first, and this is what's kind of weird about how I finish now. The first time I finished, it was outside 107 degrees in Arizona and the sun, and I was spraying lacquer.
Well, you got to be fast.
You got to be fast. So if you ever watch an Instagram of me on a story and I'm spraying, it looks like I sped it up 2-3 times. And most people are like, you don't have to go that fast. It's now muscle memory. Like my wife's even like, why do you blow and go like that? Like, it's just too fast. And I'm like, that's just how I spray.
I mean, that many years I could see. I mean, I've been to Arizona like a handful of times, and I don't know how these people survive down there.
There's air conditioning.
Not strong enough.
No. Well, the best part is we have evaporative cooling in the shop. So it is blowing out maybe 80-degree, moist, hot air, but it gets all the fumes out, so you can spray indoors pretty good. So that's how it all started. Then fast forward to living in North Carolina. I'm working at Klingspore's woodworking shop, and this lady comes in to purchase some seal coat. She's got bleeding on her furniture. And so that becomes my future wife. And so then my wife's got a refinishing business. Oh, good. You refinish furniture. So now it's a husband-wife team. And we do I don't even know how many pieces at this point. I've stopped counting. I'm just very thankful and blessed that we have so much work to do. But yeah, just everyone around here, family heirlooms, find something at Goodwill, whatever the case may be. That's what we're into.
So mostly on the refinishing side, you're mostly doing furniture. Do you guys get into the cabinet world at all?
Mm-hmm. We do. I've got a odd way. I'm not a big fan of spraying in place. I think there's a lot of cost in the tape. Even with airless sprayers, there's just so much setup time that a lot of the customers don't want to pay that. So that's where we can kind of find a nice little niche of, mohair rollers, not the foam ones, but a mohair roller, 4-inch, leaves really nice. I've got a couple of pictures I can share with you, but I've got a blue kitchen where I did all the face frames. I take the doors and the drawers off and I spray them. And so that mohair with a flat finish, easier to get away with, you don't see the sheen difference and it looks the same. So it keeps the cost down for them, which is huge. But I don't know how many we do a year, maybe a dozen or so.
That's still pretty good. I remember when I had my company in Oklahoma, I started, in order to keep the shop going and the guys busy, I started outsourcing the shop work. I mean, not outsourcing, but helping painters that were doing exactly what you're doing. They were doing cabinets on site, brush and roll because they didn't want spraying in the house. I'd be like, all right, you give me the paint that you're using. I use my primer. I'll tell you how much top coat I need. Bring me your doors and drawer fronts. I'll spray them all here while you're doing the boxes. And by the time you get done with the boxes, these will be ready and you can flip the kitchen twice as fast. I mean, we had like 6 painters that would just drop doors off.
That's the best way to do it, really, is to spray them because the doors, they're not as hard. I mean, they're two-sided. You can hang them or you can put different ways of doing it. But I don't know, it's real. So for us, we will go, take everything off, prep the kitchen, put a coat on, a primer, head back to the house. Cause I do everything still here at the house. We don't have a shop. We just do everything out of the house. Here we've got like one of those carports and I still finish outside, as a matter of fact. So unless it's raining, I'm outside finishing. I've just learned that it's okay to do that. I don't have a stigma behind it. But spray the doors, bring them underneath the carport so they can dry, go back to the job site. So everything's pretty local. So it's like 30-minute drive. You can do a whole kitchen, however you want to tackle it, 3 days.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So, I mean, on the furniture side, are you doing like a lot of refinishing or is it like some restoration? I've kind of been dipping into the restoration world with like Aaron and Jamie over in Australia. So I've been slightly dipping my toe into that restoration world and it's nuts.
Yes. Is it Aaron Moore?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I follow Moore's Refinishing. I really like his page.
Yeah.
I like what he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it all depends for us. I mean, so we are in the heart of the furniture capital of the world. So it's outside of Lenore. So you got Thomasville. I mean, you pretty much named Broyhill, Bernhardt. All of those is what we work on because someone either worked at the factory and bought that furniture, worked at the factory and got the furniture. We don't ask questions. So somehow it's in the family that way. And I've learned a lot about how production furniture is put together. I understand the ins and the outs of what makes a high-end piece high-end and what makes I don't want to put a bad name to it, but like the rooms to go style retail, how they had a cut cost basically.
Yeah. There was you said pine furniture. That reminds me when I was on the coating side, we had a customer in Arizona and they strictly make kids furniture, beds, dressers. Everything's made out of pine.
Yes.
That's all they use is pine. I mean, the durability, the cheapness, because it's kids furniture. And they started going into this world of wanting to paint it and wanting to move to water base. So then we had the task of finding, and what I found interesting, because I got on the science side of it a lot, was pine bleeds, but it's not the tannin that you would normally expect. So normal tannin blocking primers, they don't do shit to pine.
No, because it's a rosin.
Yeah, it has to be. I so many testing. I mean, I think they finally figured it out, but man, if I ever see pine furniture again, I'm just like, no, I'm out.
Do you ever remember, because if you're in Dallas, you would have seen the Rockfish restaurants. Okay, so there used to be, I don't know, I'd probably say 2005 or so in that area to 2015, maybe, they had lodge pole benches, seats, and they were like either red, green, blue. They were really bright colors.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I finished the green and the reds of those for a little while in the early years as like the guy who was initially building them and making the prototypes of them to go to different places and restaurants. I was the one finishing them, and we did it all with stain. Yeah.
A
So
lot of
bright
dye
red
stains.
stain. Well, this one wasn't a dye stain, unfortunately. It was a Sherwin-Williams wood stain. It was their Sherwood products. So this is older. And the funny thing is that being in Arizona, being inside and having the evaporative cooler on, whenever you're spraying something, it travels. And in the same parking lot, there happened to be a gentleman who was, these are like little 1,000 square foot shops. You know, there's 10 on each side, so 20 altogether. Well, there happened to be a beautiful black BMW M5. And then one day I get a knock on the door, do you mind coming and taking a look at it? Now, I'd done business with him. He did vinyl. So at that time, we're talking like the big vinyl machines that would cut everything out. Now you can do it all at home. So this was before that. And I walk up to the car and it looked like red glitter. And he was really upset because he had just purchased that BMW from the actor who played Worf on Star Trek: The Next Generation. So for him, this was like a gem, and I had just ruined it. So clay magic to the rescue.
I mean, yeah, those clay bars. I was going to say, did the clay bars get it out?
It got it out, no problem, because luckily it had traveled far enough to where it was just in that sticky stage, but it wasn't still wet. So it would just stick to the surface, but it was still a ball, if you will, of oil-based finish.
Oh, man, I can't even imagine.
It was interesting. I felt really bad because, I had no idea, number one, that it traveled like that. And by the way, Pledge travels just as far, if not twice as far. So you always get fish eyes in something.
Yes.
But yeah, I learned really quickly that, overspray can travel much further than you expect.
Oh my gosh. So what do you used a lot of lacquer. What are you using now? Like, what's your finish of choice? Are you a 2K guy or?
Nope, still in the lacquer department. I do like the 2Ks, but most people that we have offered that particular finish to would rather go with the cheaper finish. So pre-cat or get Sherwin-Williams and get them to catalyze it there type of thing.
The post-cat pre-cat?
Yeah, post-cat pre-cat works pretty good for the most part. Now, I've done it long enough now that where I can tell that the smell of it is when I know it's cured.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I don't know if you've ever noticed that, like if you go to smell the wood and you can smell, like walnut's a dead giveaway, oak's pretty good too, but if you smell it, there's no more smell of the lacquer, just the smell of the wood. Your film finish is perfect. It's ready to ship.
That's a good point. I've never thought about it, but it does make a lot of sense. Yeah.
But the other finish I really like, and it's the old school one, is tongue oil. If I'm doing something that's hand rubbed, like right now, I got a really great opportunity to do these old World War II. They were the training rifles for the infantry when they got drafted. They went down to, I think it's Lafayette is where these ones came from. So they're 22s. When the soldiers get drafted, they come down and this is their training rifles. And then, so they're basically built off of the Grand, and then they would move, or the M4. I can't remember which one. I'm not a huge gun guy. I apologize. But so they would basically train on these, and these guys now on this market have taken and bought them. Now they're trying to refinish them and basically kind of get them back up to par so they can be used in festivals. They can be used in marches. They can be used in parades. Yeah. So tongue oil for me, that's what I'm going to use on it instead of linseed oil.
Tongue oil is an interesting one. Like I've used it a little bit. Like if I'm doing some hardwood that's outside on a table, I'll use tongue oil when I was refinishing because it'll just kind of dissipate and it doesn't leave really a film, so it doesn't make refinishing hell. If you're doing a really hardwood, like some Pele, I think it is, or I can't remember what. There's a really tight hardwood that was on higher end furniture that's always outside. Teak is another
probably
one.
Ipe.
And I always use tongue oil on it, but it's regional. Like I was talking to Aaron and like guys on the West Coast, they don't even know what tongue oil is.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's mostly grown in Florida.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
We used it in Oklahoma, and I didn't use a ton of it, but I used a decent amount of it. But Aaron and I are in the middle of a 2-part episode on getting into furniture refinishing tools, what you would need, things like that. And we kind of got off on a tangent the last episode, and I was asking him about tung oil, I think it was. And, he's like, I've never used it. And I'm just like,
what?
Just thought everyone used it. I mean, a little bit at least.
I got to poke some fun at him now on social media because it's like, centuries old finish. It's been around for millennia.
And then I was talking to, he and I kind of got off on this tangent too, which this kind of goes into the furniture refinishing world. When I was talking to Deal in Design, his name's Jamie. He's in Australia. Dealing in Design. He has a furniture refinishing company down there. Awesome guy. His episode is freaking hilarious because he is probably one of the funniest guys I've ever met. But I was asking him why the furniture guys don't use 2K. And it was like a duh moment when he was like, well, a lot of this stuff comes back every 10 years because they want to refresh it. 20 years. It's not something that you just do it. And then if you're in the middle of it and something doesn't look right, you need to be able to go backwards. We don't use 2K because you really can't go backwards.
That makes sense.
You can't take a step back. And I was like, oh man, I don't know why I never thought about that. But I mean, that's a lot of from the manufacturing side, you were always trying to get into that furniture world, get into the antique furniture finishing and stuff. Because 2K, I mean, it's a bulletproof coating. Solvent 2K is, I mean, I don't know if there's a better coating out there in my opinion, but you just could never convert those guys. And until I was talking to Jamie, it just never really hit me that a lot of times I'll be in the middle of something and be halfway through it and I'll be like, something doesn't look right. This isn't the right tone. I got to pull off a few layers and go back, or it doesn't blend. Yeah. You can't back up.
You know what? That makes a lot of sense. The only time I would ever use it is dining room tables or some sort of utilitarian surface where, I know they're going to be hell on it. But I can understand not using it on the bodies because I rarely anyways, will want to use a top coat that's colored as my color coat.
Yeah, I am. And I don't know who I was talking to. I am so ready for pigmented top coats to go out and go back to stain. I'm so ready to go back. I mean,
so I do something different though, is that I'll put it in the sealer. So for instance, like
Mohawk has sealer.
So like Mohawk and Sherwin-Williams, Sherwin-Williams not anymore. They used to have a white, they still have a black, but there's basically, it's, titanium white in a sealer. It's called a white primer. So I'll take that now that it's color controlled. I will take that and then I will add my color into it. Usually if I'm doing a light white color, because if you go to distress it and then you clear coat it, your distressing is uniform and feels like all one coating. It just feels great all over the place instead of having the finish and then you try to chip past it and then it has that chippiness still. I don't like that.
Well,
like definitely doesn't like that.
You're putting something over the coating color instead of into the wood. I mean, we did for I don't know, maybe a year. I went the automotive style. Mohawk has a product. I think it was Mohawk. No, maybe it was called Base Coat. And it was a tint controlled. Yeah, it was like a sealer, essentially, but it was a tintable sealer. So you could put it on any color, but it was like, it was a filled by weight. They could control the color across multiple gallons. Most primers aren't filled by weight. This was filled by weight, has a certain amount of titanium in it. They used good titanium, and they called it a base coat is what they called it. And then but it wasn't designed to go on the substrate by itself. You had to top coat it. So we did a clear, and we did that for not quite a year, but almost a year. And if you're doing the install, I loved it.
Yeah, it's easy to touch up.
If you're not doing the install, it sucked because there was always a ton of touch up, always. And it was right in the highlight of that. Everyone wanted white cabinets with the accent islands that were always dark colors. And and then we went to pig top coat. But I'm just ready for the natural wood. Like my wife and I, we live in a Class A motorhome right now with our kids, and we love it. But my wife's in this phase where start looking at houses. We really like Fort Worth, so this is where we're going to stay. And I'm just so tired of seeing gray and white painted cabinets. I want some stained walnut. Give me some stained alder. I'll take the poor man's cherry. I don't care.
Oh, I love alder.
I mean, I do. Naughty alder is probably one of my favorite woods, but everyone's
Yes.
like, just get cherry. And I'm like, well, I mean, I don't have cherry wood money. I don't even have walnut wood money. I got
barely
some
have clear alder money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you just so many houses, and you go into them and they look great in the pictures, and you walk in there and you just see these white painted cabinets just with nicks everywhere. And you can't, if you're a finisher, you can't unsee it.
Mm-mm.
I mean, the house could be a year old. It's there. I mean, it's all over the trim work. And like my father-in-law, he's where I learned a lot of my painting. And he's been in the business for 30 plus years. But his house was all stained, and it was built in the 80s, 70s. And they since sold that house, but he never redid the woodwork in that house when he bought it. It was all like oak, but it was like that medium brown that wears perfectly. You can't see any nicks or anything. It could be 100 years old, and from 3 feet away, it looked perfect.
Well, even up close, you'd really have to get on it just to see it was a scuff from like a vacuum cleaner or something.
But man, the white cabinets, what is it? The snowbound white that everyone was doing, and the package white that everyone's doing. It shows everything, and I'm so over it.
Well, and I don't get how they'll take poplar doors and then they paint them with like a 2K or something. It's almost like the wood's too soft to accept that hard of a finish for a kitchen. Like I've seen a lot of them. I guess it also depends on a lot of that shaker style where it's nice 90-degree angles. It chips real easily. If it's a round over, like the older 90s style, that seems to take a chip a little bit better because it's rounded over already.
Yeah, well, it's so brittle. The problem you run into is, 2K is extremely hard. And if you don't, and a lot of painters don't, they'll get these new cabinets and just blow and go. Even if they're using a 2K or a CV, doesn't matter. They don't break that edge, because the cabinet builders nowadays, most of them don't do it. They just send them out. So you've got that hard edge on there, and you've got to break that, because your paint needs to be a continuous film. When it's a sharp edge like that, it can't be a continuous film, and it's just going to
surface area. Yeah, the surface area just pulls back from it, because there was a time where I was called in for a technical thing. I don't know how to put it, but basically what it was a chair company dipping chairs into water-based finish. I won't mention the company, and pulling it out. Everything's fine except for the very front and the back of the seat. They started to crack. And what it was that they had a too sharp of an edge. They didn't sand it, and then it's ingrain. And I'm like, but you're dipping ingrain that you haven't sanded finer or treated or done any kind of water pop at all into water, and then bringing it out. That's what's going to happen. It's going to swell. So it's the same idea as I told them they had to break the edge, and then they had to at least just put some water right across the front of it before the final sanding, whatever that grit was. And they didn't have any problems after that. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot. If that prep work is 1,000% everything you need to do, because the spraying, the films, all that stuff is easy, really.
Oh yeah.
It's the prep work before that. If you don't do it right, because that's where it comes into sanding. Jeez.
That's where I tell everybody all the time. Like, I mean, in cabinet finishing, any type of wood finishing, 80% of your time, we'll call it 75% of your time, should be in the prep work before a primer coat hits it. And then you should put 2 coats of primer, hit it with a 400, and be able to hit it with 1 finish coat and be done. I mean, you can do 2, but that should be your work. I mean, you shouldn't be doing any rough sanding after you prime it.
See, I will disagree on that one. For if you're using foam, that you want to use a grit coarser than what you think. Like if it's fine, however, it depends on how it's labeled. Like if it's surf prep and it's fine, that will be okay. But I kind of like the medium better, And then if it's Klingspore stuff and it's labeled 120, if you go to sand on that, Granted, if it's a fresh foam pad, it's going to be a little aggressive.
If you're using that half-inch foam, I'll agree with you.
Yes. Yeah. It's just such a nice scratch versus like a 400. It's almost too fine. It doesn't really do anything. It's almost like polishing. So when it gets into sandpaper, that's where I'll go off on a tangent because that's what I do. But I can tell you that using a grit, whenever I talk to somebody and they say like 400, I will ask them, is that paper? Is that film? Are you doing it on foam? Like there's so many different applications now with just that grit.
Yeah. I mean, my big deal was like the 400 net. I love the Cubitron and the Cubitron paper, hook and loop, and then the auto net. I think it was Merca had an auto net, and then the 3M Cubitron 400 was probably my go-to on most of it. If for a primer to finish coat, that was it. Primer to finish was the 400, and that was all using 2K, solvent 2Ks. It cut it. Yeah. But you know what I learned? Who was it from? I've tried to get, do you know who Diane Chaddock is? So Diane Chaddock, awesome lady. She used to work for Gemini. She's in Florida now, I believe. If you like sanding, like she is like considered the sanding queen. She has probably forgotten more about sandpaper and, you know, the cut and what's in it than you and I will probably ever know. She is a sanding genius. She's done a couple conferences at like AWFS and IWF and some other stuff, but now she does a lot of consulting, I think. I don't think she's working for Gemini anymore. I can't remember, but I'm trying to get her to come on to do an episode about sanding because it is the area that everyone probably struggles the most with because everyone focuses on spraying and then sanding gets kind of left to the side and we'll figure it out. We'll just, you know, try a different abrasive, or if it doesn't work, they're getting swirl marks. I mean, and one thing she taught me, which it was later on in my career when I learned, was you have to sand the same day that you're going to recoat. Because coatings today with the resin that's in them, if you sand the night before, your coating will actually not 100%, but more than 50% almost heal because it's not fully cured. It hasn't been through the full cure. So you sand it and you break it up and it softens. If you let it sit more than 8 hours, you need to sand it again before you top coat it or before you put another coat on it because you're not getting that mechanical adhesion. You're getting a little bit of you're getting chemical, but you're not getting the good mechanical adhesion that you want. The
full mechanical adhesion. I can see that because I always refer to it as a kitchen sponge. And all film coatings, because of the solvents, no matter if it's water or solvent based, the evaporation rate causes that film to shrink. And that shrinkage is what you have to sand on it. If you sand too soon, like if you get corns in the sandpaper, then you're too soon or you're too fine. But as soon as it becomes shrunk enough, so I get the idea there with that. Okay.
And I don't know why I never thought about it because we'd always, and when I started doing that, I started having less issues, you know, started my guys on doing that later on. Cause I'd be like, all right, let's get everything primed and sanded tonight and we'll top coat first thing in the morning. When we started, you know, prime tonight, all right, let's just put it away. We're done for the day. Come in the morning, sand, top coat. Didn't have the pulling, didn't have the breakover issues, didn't have the trash issues from them sitting overnight, didn't have the adhesion. I mean, it wasn't a ton of issues, but enough that you would always have a door or two that you would have to redo out of a kitchen. Let's say you had to redo 3 doors and that went down to maybe 1 door every 3 jobs.
Yes, I could see that because you're giving, I always called it the shop goblins that would come in and just decided they were going to do something to ruin your finish for the night before, especially like, before an install.
Those same little bastards that steal your socks out of the dryer.
Or misplace all of your solvent. Yeah. So how did that spill on the ground?
Yeah, I don't know where that went. Huh?
I find that sanding is marketing gone wrong because there's so many companies that will say so many different things, but they don't explain it to the consumer in a way that, like, I'll see a shop. Let's say a community center is my favorite, like one of those shops that will have, like the whole community comes together and they have all the different tools in there. And I'll see on the back wall that it says 60, 80, 100, 120, and there's like multicolor discs in the 80. So they're not staying consistent with one manufacturer, let alone possibly the same type of grain in that 80. Because I had one guy call me one time and say, I'm using this 150 grit and it's all blotching. But it's all, it's all Klingspore disc, but it's blotching. I said, well, do you mind, like, what's the number on this front? What's it look like? What's the number on the back? Can you give me some more details about it? Well, it's a red one, it's a green one, it's a tan one, it's a blue one. And I'm like, those are all different grits. You can't use all those just because they're 150. And so some areas he was using like some really harsh aluminum zirconia, which is not a finishing scratch. So it's the stains taking darker there, where he was using like it was a heavily coated stearate material, so that scratch is very soft and the stain was not taking there at all. But it's all 150 grit. And I'm like, yeah, we got to wipe out all that. Just pick one of those that you like out of the whole bunch and we'll start there. Never got a call from him again. Well, actually, no, that's not true, because 3 months later he did call about a different issue and I asked him about it. He didn't think I remembered him. And he said, oh yeah, that's all taken care of. Okay, sure. But that's probably the biggest thing I noticed, is that a lot of people will just throw everything into one bin because it says it's that grit. And then the other issue I noticed is that bare wood sanding should always stop at 220, never finer than that. Because for 99% of your finishes, it's going to start polishing the surface. You're starting to burnish the wood. The 1% that I will say is that sometimes on cherry, if you want to age it without aging it properly with sunlight, that if you sand up to 400 and then stain it, it just looks perfectly aged, like you left it out in the sun.
Oh, I have to remember that. My SOP in my shop was, if you're priming it, 180, 200. If we're going to pigmented, if we're staining it and it needs to be prepped, you don't touch it with anything but 150. That was always my rule, because 150, because what I noticed, and with a lot of the oil stains, especially on like poplar and stuff like that, even though you shouldn't stain poplar, they still do.
I love it. What's wrong with that?
Was never a big fan of stained poplar, but when you go above 150, it starts closing the grains and it just doesn't take it. You just end up wiping 90% of the stain off, and you keep going back and re-wiping it. But those grains are all like this, and there's nothing to get in there. And though anything below 150, and you're just eating the wood up. But 150 just always turned out to be that. Now I couldn't tell you. I'm trying to think whose 150 it was. It was either Surf Prep or Merca. Yeah, Surf Prep or Merca. That was all I ended up using there towards the end. But that was my go-to, 150. If you're doing stained wood, 150 with the grain, stain it, seal it, then we'll go to like 320 on the sealer.
I have ruined so many people's days by them calling in, and this could be a big cabinet shop even. It doesn't matter the size to me. It's all about the process, and everybody's process is different, which is what's great about this job for me, is that I get to just hear, consult, and then let them know. But my favorite thing is when they call in and they say that, hey, I'm getting this blotching issue, or this issue is not adhering with this finish, whatever it is. Okay, what's your sanding process? I do 80, I do 180, and then I do 400. Okay, well, there's an issue. And then so then when I go, and then I have to put my stain or my preconditioner on, I have to let that dry, and then I have to stain it. And I'm like, why do you need the preconditioner? Well, it's all blotchy. And I'm like, okay. Like, I don't tell them what it is that they're possibly causing the issues. I just kind of listen to everything they're doing and then ask little questions. But eventually I go back and I'm like, don't sand past 180. Wet the wood before the 180, and you won't need the preconditioner for the rest of your life.
That's a good one.
And it's like, that's it. Well, because what I found out is that if you water pop anything in general, just like grass, it loves to stand up. All the wood fibers stand up. Plus, whenever you have an inspection light, the scratches stand out like little white out marks. Like, you can see them. Like someone took a charcoal white pencil and just marked on it, so you can see all your problems. So I call it to the beginners, especially, or to someone who's doing production line stuff. I'll tell them it's an insurance policy to make sure everything is uniform before it hits the finishing room, especially if they have a sanding department and everyone's sanding, because all the different people sanding will sand different ways. Every one of them. If they wet it before they get to the 180 for their final stage, at least they get an idea of what they're missing or what needs to be done. And then they can send it on for paint, or they can send it on for stain, and it'll work fine. water-based too, because now you've already popped the grain. So you don't have to worry about NGRs and all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Well, say I want to take a quick break, refresh drinks, and then I want to come back. But I kind of want to dig into a little bit with Klingspore, if I'm pronouncing it right. Are you still doing some stuff for them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I'm still full time with them.
I want to jump into them and talk about them a little bit because they do some abrasives, right? And wood supplies. So let's grab a drink refresher and then we'll come back and jump into Klingspore.
Sounds good.
Do you want your brand in front of the people who actually move product? Painters, finishers, and manufacturers? The Bearded Finisher podcast has pulled in over 75,000 downloads and reaches across the entire finishing supply chain, from job site to manufacturing. From single episode sponsorships to social media promotion, we offer flexible options that get your brand noticed. Real reach, real results. Visit thebeardedfinisher.com and let's get your brand front and center. Are you a residential painter buried in admin, scheduling chaos, or constant material delays? Meet mypaintbuckets.com, the first dedicated project management platform built by painters for painters. It delivers turnkey workflows to simplify your day, from project sharing and material ordering to scheduling and EPO capture, so you can focus on scaling your crew and maintaining the reputation you've worked so hard to build. And if you're a supplier, painters are evolving faster, smarter, and more efficient than ever. The suppliers who thrive over the next 10 years will be the ones who build real trust. That's why we created free tools to help you keep up and stay relevant. Head to mypaintbuckets.com and see why the next generation of painters isn't looking back.
All right, we are back at it. So let's dig into, corrected me, thank you, Klingspore Woodworking.
That's right.
All right, so kind of give us a background on them.
So we'll go back even further to Klingspore Abrasives, Germany. 1893, started making abrasives. And, they have a whole history of it where they've been involved with everything from, they called it auto paper, which is what we now know as wet dry silicon carbide. That wasn't a thing back then. So that to do paints, the first people to make the flap wheel. So, individual strips of sandpaper that are pressed onto a wheel and then you put it on an angle grinder. To the really big wheels too. They have monstrous ones. So all across the board. In about the 70s, the grandson, Christoph Klingspore, came to North Carolina, furniture capital of the world. And so therefore started selling abrasives to the furniture factories here. And then late 80s, about 89 or so, after doing some tallying about waste, he's very environmentally conscious. So they started realizing they were throwing away a lot of sandpaper. It's perfectly good, but it's offcuts of wide belts. It's offcuts of different types of belt sizes, whatever the case may be, just industrial offcuts. So they decided to put these into a box, 20 pounds, and sell them for like $30. And so that started Klingspore's Woodworking shop, which was they called it the standing catalog at the time, and then it became a retail store. So now Klingspore's Woodworking shop sells everything abrasives, but also everything with your finishes, your Mohawk touch-ups, general finishes, to the total boat stuff that we just got in, all the way to clamps. I mean, you name it, big equipment, all the way down to a touch-up. We've got it.
Okay. And how long have you been with them?
14 years as of the 13th of this month.
14 years. Wow.
Yeah.
So, and you specifically yourself, or you're doing like tech, inside sales, outside sales, or just kind of a little bit of everything?
Geez, I wish I had my hat rack behind me. It's quite a feat. We joke about that all the time just because it is a small company. So you got to take on whatever you can do to get it done. But I started part-time in the retail store of Hickory, North Carolina. And then it went to full-time. Then I went to store manager, and I was there till 2016, and then became the social media marketing side of it. And in the course of that time, though, I was helping train a lot of the so Klingspore Abrasives as a factory does industrial size accounts, so large cabinet accounts. They'll, if you need 100 pack of discs for one grit and one type. That's what Abrasives, the plant, does. And the Klingspore's Woodworking Shop does 10s and 50s. So we hit the smaller people, the garage, the do-it-yourselfers, anyone starting out, for instance, like if you want to start out refinishing, but you don't want to invest a lot, we have good bulk sandpaper that you can get at a much cheaper price in the box store. So that's how, and then it turned into a technical thing because I was helping teach the reps. So then it became something where I actually got really interested in sandpaper because I get all these questions, and then if you ever go to woodworkingshop.com and you go to the chat line, 9 times out of 10 people will be like, oh yeah, I was referred to you, Mike, to ask you this question. And so on the chat line, we can hit you with whatever you got. We can send it to you, whatever you need answered. You can call the number. I mean, all those things. So that's what I'm not in charge of, but part of the team that does all of that.
Okay. That seems like that would be fun.
It actually is a lot of fun. It's what keeps me here, honestly, is the customers, because every day is something crazy and new.
I mean, I spent, I don't know how much you know of me, but I spent almost 3 years in the manufacturing side. I was the executive director for CIC, which is Centurion Wood Coatings. Water-based 2K, but we also did solvents and we did DTM, we did metal coatings, custom industrial coatings. We had all kinds of crazy weird stuff. We made hat lacquers and weird dip coatings for wires. But I liked that, kind of like the same thing. You'd go to work and it was something different every day. I mean, there was a constant that was always the same, but you always get stuff like, I specifically remember I had this. She was a female engineer, really awesome. I can't remember what her name was, but she was with this wire dip coating company. And it was like, none of my guys, they just like, here, just send her to Zach. And I learned in a matter of like 30 minutes, I learned more than I probably ever cared to know about coatings that wires are dipped in at different temperatures and the colorants and the speed that these lines run. I mean, my brain hurt so much after that. It was like a 2-hour conversation and my head's spinning. I got nothing. And she just kept going, just kept talking. And I'm like, I might have to get with our chemist because I want to help you, but you are so far over me.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Let me get someone who knows exactly what you're talking about.
I could try and salesman you, but I don't think it's going to work.
No, it may not be, the best idea. No, I get those, which I love because it's like I never knew about an industry. And a lot of times you get someone on the phone and if they have a minute, they'll explain it because they're passionate about what they're doing. So you get that moment where you can just get an idea of what's happening. They talk to you a lot about their whole deal. But one of my favorites today was this lady called and said that she's got this cherry butcher block. The color's not right, but she's already oiled it. And I was like, what'd you oil it with? And she had one of those Boo block, it's like the mineral oil. She's like, I want to put gel stain on it. I'm like, probably not a good idea that you put mineral oil on it because that's a treatment, not a finish. So it's not going to really dry. You're going to have some issues. I said, but it's cherry, right? She said, yeah. I said, go get you a grow lamp, put it over top of it, 15 minutes. Turn it on, turn it off. Do that all day, 8 hours. And then by the end of the day, see if you like the color that it looks. She was like, that's retarded. What does that mean? And I'm like, well, UV light ages it. It'll be fine. Trust me on it. Just to make sure there's nothing on the surface because that'll be a big problem because you'll have a big circle or whatever the shape is.
Yep.
But this way you can do all that and not have to worry about anything. She's like, I'm heading to Lowe's right now.
I remember that I was just thinking, oh, I got one for you. If we had a guy, same thing, cherry, and he sent it to us, and I'm just like, he's like, something's wrong with it. It's a water-based wood coating. Something's wrong with it. And I'm like, man, I don't know why it would do that. It didn't take. It discolored the wood, and in a weird way did it discolor the wood. And he's sending pictures, and the pictures are interesting angles, to say the least. You just can't figure it out. And going to the chemist, and I'm talking to him. He's also one of the owners, and we're like, what? This doesn't make any sense. We go buy some, we coat it, and we're just trying to figure out what it was. Well, it's like a week, and it was me or one of my guys, goof around online and find this guy's page. it was some cherry paneling, and he had his garage door open. Paneling was sitting on a rack, and he had like a backpack strap or something was just laying over it, and you could see the sunlight coming right in over it. I mean, he's wanting us to replace all this wood, and so I saved the video, talked to the chemist. I'm like, I think it got UV and part of it wasn't covered. He's like, you think? What's weird shape? I'm trying to remember what it was, but we get him on the phone. We start talking to him. He's like, yeah, that doesn't have anything to do with it. We're like, it's cherry, right? It's highly susceptible to UV. You cannot expose any of it to light and then not the rest of it. It's not going to color right, because it was like a weird design, and then the whole panel. Oh man, it was like 2 weeks of not figuring out until you found it on social media, and it was like in the background, and then you saw it because it was like, that looks like that looks like that weird design. But so many people don't think about that.
No, if you have a hardwood floor and you put a rug down, a lot of them think it's the rug itself, the backing is causing a problem with the finish. It's the light.
I mean,
the rest of the floor has seen it.
Same thing with cabinets. I mean, and I used to, when I did a lot of residential painting, that was one of my go-tos, was we'd paint a whole house, and customer designer would want it monochromatic, wall, ceiling, trim, all the same color. Not my cup of tea, but we'd do it in a room, and then the homeowner would come in and be like, well, this isn't right. Ceiling's a different color. No. It's flat walls and ceilings. It's not the same color on the ceiling, and the trim's different. Trim satin, walls are flat, ceiling's flat. Look, you can look right there. It's a different color. And I'm like, no, that's the same color. It's this little thing called light reflection. And they would just argue with you like, no, that's wrong. And I'd be like, well, you're going to have to call the man upstairs, because I can't change anything about light and how it reflects off substrates and shadows. You're going to have to talk to the man in the clouds, because he's the one that does that.
He's the one that provides all that.
So
I found a really easy trick for that. Was there was a gentleman who was a finisher for umpteen amount of years, showed me this trick of a black and white panel that you like. So take the easiest thing, depending on the size you want to do, is a sheet of paper is fine, like printer paper, and just, put something down, spray it black with some spray paint, and then fold it in half and cut out the middle to where you have like this little rectangle. So half of it's in the white, half of it's in the black, and then stick that over something. The human eye will train itself to what it is in the middle. And if it's sheen based or related, it looks uniform up and down, because you have both opposites next to it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It blew my mind the first time he did it, because he's sitting over there with a Sharpie just drawing on this piece of paper. And I'm like, what is he doing? And he folds it in half. He's quiet, just cuts a little rectangle out. And then he opens it up and lays it for this customer who's saying that the stain wasn't the same color. And he lays it right over top of it, and it's identical. You couldn't tell which side of the board he had put it on. And then he would flip the paper around, so the black's on the left, the white's on the right, whatever the case is. And they can't argue with it at that point, because then as soon as you take it away, you can see it with your eye that, oh, it is all the same. It was the light, because there wasn't a finish on the one side and there was on the other. But when you do that, it takes away the sheen from it. It just trains your eye to look exactly at it. So hopefully that helps somebody, because as soon as he did that, I was like, I'm using that for the rest of my life.
No kidding. Man, I'm now I want to do it just to try it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what it reminded me of is that if you ever go to like a perfume shop, they have little containers of coffee so you can retrain your nose. He said it was the same idea as that. You're just training your eye to have complete black, complete white, and you only see the color.
Man, that makes perfect sense. You only see the color. That's a good one.
You only see the color. So if you're trying to match something, if you're trying to do whatever, you're getting rid of everything around it that could be causing a problem, such as a lot of people will say, well, this is too red. It all depends on what's around it.
Yeah. And human eyes, everyone perceives color differently.
But it doesn't perceive white and black differently.
That's a good point.
Neutralizes your eye. Yep.
Huh. I like that.
So no matter if you're colorblind or not, it will actually work to where it trains your particular eye into that section. And it worked really good for sheen because I did it one time for somebody who said the same thing, monochromatic. The trim was not the same as the wall. And it was because of reflection of the light. And I'm like, well, that's because there's a light source right there. So that's why that doesn't match over here. And I was like, just turn off the light, turn on your cell phone. I did the little up and down thing where you turn it on and you go up and down like that. Like, see, it's the same color. It's like, no, it's a different color. So then I tried that trick and it was like, oh, yeah, okay, it is.
That's good to know. Yeah, I'm sure somebody will be trying that one for sure. I always stain was always another one to me. Like, I get it. Like when you get into the stain world, there is, conditioners you can put in the wood, try and have more uniformity on the stain. And then people start blending sealers, start toning with sealers, spray stain a little bit, helps a little bit more. But I was never a big spray stain person because I feel like you're blurring that line of a stain and a coating. Because it does bite into a little bit depending on what vehicle it's used, but it doesn't bite as much as like a traditional oil wiping stain or a lacquer wiping stain.
Yeah, you're talking water-based because if you spray water-based and you've got pores, it's going to water tension pull away from those pores. Where if you wipe it on, it's forcing it into those pores.
And I can't tell you how many people that I would do because I'm a very big I like the natural oil stain. Even a lacquer stain if you want something that's hard and you've got a tight grained wood. But traditional oil stains, even a quick dry oil stain, like the way that they just penetrate into the wood, deep into that color, into the pores, you're going to have variations. That was another one of my always like, well, the stain doesn't look very even. And I'm like, it's wood. It just accentuates what's already there. And they're like, well, I don't like it. And that was another one of my talk to the man upstairs. I didn't make the tree.
It's chatoins. That's what I always tell them. I said it's a French fancy word for cat's eye. That's what the wood does. Just go with it. Like that's the beauty of wood.
That's one of my favorite things about stained woods. It just the variance. Like I know today there's a big. It seems like stains are coming back. I'm noticing here in the last year or so. There's more than there was. Yeah, but I guess the only way I can explain it is like what I would call furniture grade stain, where it's usually sprayed, and then there's usually toners put into the sealer, so it just all looks consistent and even 100%. You don't really see any variations of the grain.
Yeah, I think I've noticed too that people have gone away so much from dyes that they don't realize that option's available to where you can have transparency of the grain, but you can have all the darkness and color you want.
Yeah. Well, that's where I've really gotten into a guy named Luca has a company in Italy. They do microlith pigments. Oh my gosh. When you get into microlith, even water-based, doesn't matter the vehicle. You can use water, you could use solvent. But those microlith pigments, they're just ground so fine. And they are beautiful. I mean, he was doing some stuff when he came to our office years ago. And I was just like, man, this stuff is crazy. I mean, I could just sit and pick his brain. He's from Italy. Every time he'd come into town, we'd have to go get brisket. I don't know what it is. Italians love barbecue. So you're in Texas.
Gotta have brisket.
Gotta have brisket. And I've never seen someone eat that much brisket. It was crazy. But you just go buy him some brisket and he'll just tell you everything about the business.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Just soak that stuff up, man. It was awesome. We used to have a ton of fun.
Yeah, those just dyes in general, you can really control some things. Like you can layer them. If you got too much red, you can throw a little green in there, kind of control that a little bit. I just find there's a lot of fun you can have with them. There's a gentleman. That's a funny story, actually, because I get this phone call randomly where he said, Mike, I just want to tell you, thank you. I started a YouTube channel because of you, and you changed everything on how I looked at finishing. And I was like, well, back up there, buddy. What are we talking about here? So a while back, there was this simple dye bottle that was broken in shipping. And I remember him sending me the picture of it. So I said, okay, I remember the project. And he said, remember, it was like game box, like 2 drawers. You put all your games in it. He is not an experienced woodworker, but he made an amazing individual piece of veneer. And he made it in it was a rainbow form in a way, like a lot of purples, blues, and reds, but he did individual pieces that did a cascade on the drawer front. So think of like a rainbow in a way, but it wasn't quite that because they were all angled pieces, but all individual glued pieces. I was like, dude, you're getting into intarsia. Like, this is insane work. But yeah, it's just him teaching him about dyes and that he could take a simple maple and make it red, green, yellow. He didn't have to go buy all the species. That was his thing. He didn't want to go purchase all the species. It would get expensive. And I'm like, just buy maple and dye it all. What do you need to buy all those species for? And so when I finally got to see the project, I mean, it's pretty cool. And he started his YouTube channel, and he's, I don't know, he was so energetic about it, but that caught me off guard at first. And that happened Monday this week. I think I was like, okay, hold on a second. I changed your entire life. Talk me through this.
Yeah, let me see. Good or bad? I need to really know what's
good or
going
bad.
on.
Do I owe you money? I mean, what are we talking?
That's funny.
That's always my favorite.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the Bearded Finisher Podcast. We thank everyone for joining. Keep hustling, keep learning, and never settle for anything less than your best. Remember, the path to perfection is a journey, not a destination. Until next time.